Parshat Vayechi, which is found on page 180 in the Chumash, talks about Jacob's death, and it ends actually with Joseph's death. And there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from this parsha. First, Jacob has lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. Midrash tells us we know that he had 17 years with Joseph before Joseph disappears, and he has 17 years with Joseph at the end of his life, rebuilding that special bond that they had. And at the end of his life, Joseph brings his children to see Jacob. We learn from this that we should never be far from those we love. He brings Ephraim and Manasseh. We always say Ephraim and Manasseh, but if you look in our text in chapter 48, verse 1, you'll see that it says he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh is actually the eldest. And we have this thing, seems to happen generation after generation, where the younger becomes the one who is the more prominent of the children. But he takes his children, the grandchildren, to go visit Jacob. And it doesn't matter that Jacob is sick. And it doesn't matter whether he fully recognizes them or not, because he'll give his blessing, crossing his hands so that he gives the prominent blessing to the younger one and the second blessing to the older one. What matters is presence. It matters that they're there. It matters that they're taking time to be together. And we should always make sure that we take that time. As the parsha goes through, we know that Jacob gives we call it a blessing to each child. It's not necessarily a blessing to every one of them. To some of them it's better. There is a long history in Judaism of giving what's called an ethical will, of passing on not just your possessions, but passing on your thoughts and your beliefs, what you want people to remember from the lessons you learned and the lessons you hope they learn from you. I would say perhaps Jacob may have wanted to temper some of his thoughts, especially dealing with Ephraim and Manasseh, not Ephraim and Manasseh, with Shimon and Levi, maybe not sharing bitterness at the end of his life, but we can't know what he was going through. Additionally, in the parsha, there is a place already laid out. There is a place prepared for both Jacob and then at the end of the parsha, for Joseph. There's a place that's already done. Years ago, I remember saying to my father, would you consider going to the funeral home and pre-planning? And my father said to me, it's the planning that gets you through the days, from the time of death until the time of burial. And I don't disagree with him. But a benefit that we had in our family was we were never afraid to talk about death. We have a family plot that is as large as an institutional plot, the result of which is it's a common topic of discussion in our family and of humor in the family. But it meant that we had these conversations. It meant that we knew exactly what was the family tradition. Not just, are you going to use this funeral home or that funeral home, but which coffin we use as a family. We all know. What the service should be, we all know. Is there tachrichim, the burial shroud? Is there tahara, the purification of the body? All of this is discussed before the time of death. I spend a lot of time with people, as you might imagine, talking about death in the moment. But it's not something we should be afraid of. Recently, and hopefully Laura won't, she's not here this morning, but hopefully she won't mind me sharing this. Laura lost her mother and was in Scotland sitting Shiva, and then returned to the birth of a grandchild. And she said to me, my mother went up to make sure this grandchild had the way paved smoothly, because this grandchild arrived 5 weeks early. It's just the circle of life. And when things happen in their time, and they are the circle of life, it makes it much easier to understand. It makes it normalized, because death is something that is going to come to each of us, whether it's something we will experience ourselves, obviously, or something we'll experience while caring for another person. And our Parsha here, we start, as I said, we start with Jacob's death, we end with Joseph's death, but we understand that this is a normal part of life. It's not something to be afraid of talking about, and it's not something to ignore while people are alive.